In that context, now let's look at the trade deal itself. It started with the president putting out a tweet on or a post on Truth Social, his preferred platform, and we are showing that tweet for our audience. 18% tariff is what India will be charged, is what the president said. Then he said that at the request of the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, he's announced a trade deal, and the big takeaway is that India has assured that they will stop buying Russian oil. Now, since the president made this announcement on Truth Social, you had several officials in Washington who have said that, in very clear terms, that India will stop buying Russian oil and the US will get access to the agricultural market. India, on the other hand, while we are recording this video, the Prime Minister is speaking in the Rajya Sabha, and the External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, this morning said that the detailed negotiations are on, while the Commerce Minister of India has said that the deal is finalized, and then he said that the framework is ready. So there are a lot of sensitive questions on which the Indian government is yet to answer. But Mr. Tewari, how would you look at all that has happened in the last 3 days? And do you believe that India has conceded to Trump, or worse, compromised with Trump on red lines like agriculture?
So let me answer your question in three parts. Number one, in my book, I have argued that we should not have changed our energy purchase profile in the March, April of 2022. We had a certain energy purchase profile before Russia transgressed into sovereign Ukrainian territory. And we should have maintained that profile, and we shouldn't have really fallen prey to the lure of cheaper Russian discounted oil. The government's defense at that point in time was that, given India's energy needs, we will buy from wherever we can get the best deal possible. Fair argument, I mean, if you want to play it in that manner. But then, even today, you are getting discounted Russian oil. So, if that is your position, or that was your position then that position holds true today, because it is not that India's import dependence has gone down. It is not that discounted Russian oil is not available. Then why change your position? See, and that goes to the very heart of your strategic autonomy about the choices that you have the capacity and capability of making independently. Number two, insofar as the Indo-US trade deal is concerned, well, there is a lot of conjecture and there is a lot of speculation, but parts of that deal from India's side have already been done. For example, the civil nuclear energy legal architecture, which was passed in the winter session of Parliament, that has been a big US ask. Now going back almost to the time of the Indo-US Civil Nuclear Agreement, and when the civil liability bill was passed in the Lok Sabha, and the supply operator and the supplier liability was kind of separated, and the suppliers were also made liable. The US had all along been protesting and screaming and groaning about that. So therefore, you had a law which this government brought in, which essentially ended supplier liability. And then if you look at the finance bill, there are lots of tariff lines where duties have been reduced, some to 0%, other moved to 7.5 to 2.5%. So a lot of stuff has been done unilaterally even before the purported formal Indo-US trade deal has seen the light of the day. And coupled with that is, of course, President Trump's assertions. And eventually, the most disturbing assertion is that while the US will charge 18% tariff, Indian tariffs, and especially in terms of giving access to India's agriculture sector, would be zero. I mean, that's what the United States Trade Representative has said ad nauseum. And unfortunately, there has been diffidence. Government has not come out with a clear statement. In fact, when Minister Jaishankar was asked in Washington, D.C., I think yesterday or today morning, he kind of ducked it and he said, well, it's the commerce minister who's actually doing the deal. I'm not doing the deal. And that's a very quixotic response, coming from the person who's the points person in terms of handling India's diplomacy, at least with the major powers. So, yes, there needs to be greater clarity on what exactly are the terms of this deal, what are the unilateral concessions we have made, and therefore, your guess is as good as mine on this.
Right. Before I come to the next part, which is on India's neighborhood, where you've written again in very detail, I just have one quick question on India-US. This whole Modi-Trump bonhomie that has been playing out in recent years. In Trump's first presidency, you had, Ab Ki Baar, Trump Sarkar, and all of that, what many called huglomacy, and this entire friendship that was on display and hyped by the media as well. Then you had in the last 12 months, particularly post Operation Sindoor, and Donald Trump making that announcement of a ceasefire before India could. And now with the trade deal, there seems to be some sort of reconciliation between the two. How would you see this style of diplomacy that India has been practicing, particularly with Prime Minister Modi's bonhomie with each leader, and this entire saga that has played out with vis-a-vis Trump and Prime Minister Modi? Do you see that again changing, or do you think India needs to be more realistic and pragmatic in its approach than just stick to personalities?
So, President Trump took office in the January of 2025. We are in the February of 2026. India's diplomacy, qua the US, has been really a reactive diplomacy. It is President Trump who really has been setting, for the lack of a better word, an agenda, and that is true not only for India but for many parts of the world also, in terms of the tariff hikes, in terms of trying to undercut decade-old strategic relationships. So therefore, everybody really has been scrambling to find its feet. But the one country which actually stood out in all this was Canada. Canada being the US's immediate neighbor, the speech which the Canadian Prime Minister delivered at the World Economic Forum will actually go down in the annals of diplomacy as someone who, at a very turbulent point in time, had the conviction of courage and the spine to stand straight. So therefore, I think we should have been a little more firm. We should have drawn our red lines more firmly, and we should have understood, even from President Trump's first term, that here is a person who ideologically belongs to neither of the four schools of American foreign policy thought. He is not a Wilsonian, he's not a Hamiltonian, he's not a Jacksonian, he's not a Jeffersonian, he's a Trumponian. And in Trump's world, it is about deals and transactions. So, under those circumstances, we should have been far, far more firm about where our negotiating stance ends. And that's why you see so much of consternation and so much of ambiguity today when it comes to clarity on the Indo US trade deal.